I hope you're doing very good today. We are back with episode 3 of Poker Mind Expansion. Uh, so, I wanted to talk a little bit about when conflict solution and this kind of thought process evaporates. Because first of all, there are no problems. Reality simply is reality. And then our brain creates meanings on top of it in order to help us for utilitarian or survival purposes. But then we start to believe in these meanings instead of actually seeing the object, we see the meaning. And we believe that this meaning is existential reality. When of course it's not, it's just the meaning relative to us. But when we look at things objectively, or when we attempt to look at things subjectively, there's the meaning is not so clear. So we have to go a little bit deeper. After we start to think about poker with our own minds, not borrowing someone else's knowledge, basically all of the emotional problems that don't have anything to do with strategy simply evaporate. Because the emotional problems are a function of our beliefs about what's important and what's not important. The problem is that we don't necessarily want to believe in our own beliefs. We don't necessarily want to believe that if someone says some mean words to us that we don't know, we may get our feelings hurt. If someone calls us a very bad poker player, we might want to react in some way. And then we may have a storyline that says, this is the reason why they're bad, whatever. But actually, this is all delusion. Again, we cannot know why they're doing what they're doing because we're seeing about 15 seconds of their behavior and our brain is creating a model, right? But because we've had this emotional hijacking system, we start believing, and this is what they are, this is what they are, but it's an egoic defense mechanism. And the nervous system temporarily gets hijacked in the same way that our fight or flight response would get hijacked when there's a predator. It's the exact same process. So this system also is not separate from when we're making poker decisions, especially when, for instance, how do we know that we're in threat if someone comes up to us? So we know that maybe they're making certain facial movements, and we can hear their vocal inflections, and we can see by the way their body language is posturing. It's not like we know this is some truth they're going to hurt us, but we can process this information and say this is more likely that this person is a threat. This is more likely that this person is very kind and loving. Right, so we can take in this kind of information, but it's not like we can directly know it. We can only know based off of our own previous knowledge of what these meanings are. Now, of course, language is such an absolutely incredibly complex thing that every person is able to do so fluidly and so perfectly, but we don't think deeply about how intricate language actually is. Language is something that is vastly complex, but none of us think about very deeply. Just as none of us think about driving, because there's nothing more to know. We already understand the language. We already can drive a car. But it's not necessarily the language. I'm not saying as though it's an important thing, but understanding that we're not believing in the words that we're saying. The words are simply symbols to something much deeper that we understand. And that thing that we understand is not in isolation. Say we say the word bluff, but bluff, for instance, means not necessarily black or white on the river we're going to bet. There's so many different meanings of this word bluff, but we can generally say it's when we don't have a good hand, and what does good hand mean, right? Good hand is relative. So I'm not interested in just giving new definitions and giving anybody knowledge and trying to make them believe in new words. I simply am interested in questioning the framework in which we make assumptions. I'm far more interested in questioning the framework and the language and understanding the definition so we can get deeper into the meanings, so we don't build a house of cards, don't build a foundation based on fabrication of borrowed knowledge, but we start to understand it ourselves. All of the emotional problems go away. If we don't believe that money matters, then we will not have an emotional reaction. We can say the words, I don't believe money matters, and then we have an emotional reaction. Well, it probably will hurt our ego a little bit, this simple fact that obviously we do care because our body is having a reaction, and this agent that's saying it doesn't, this voice in the head, is simply a fractal piece of the entire machine, right? So this one that's saying, no, I don't have emotional reactions, but then when we actually look at our own behavior, we look at a friend and our friend is saying, no, I don't care about money, but all he ever talks about is money. Right, but it hurts him so much. He's so controlled by money. He has to say, I don't care. People that care about money are stupid. They're inferior. I'm superior to them because I don't care about money. But he's completely controlled by money. So why does he talk about money, right? So looking into like our own minds, but in fact, it doesn't matter. Our own minds are our opponents. It's basically equivalent because it's not like we know our opponents. We only see their cards and then we create our own model on the fly based off of our information about them. Now, it's not that the issues and complexities necessarily disappear when these emotions subside and we start to think about things logically. And when we get into hands, we aren't thinking about the previous 3 situations and having some great emotional reaction that will influence our next decision. Say we're in middle position and we're supposed to open 22%. And we say, oh, we're going to adjust this model by saying the big blind is playing a little bit like this, the button is playing a little bit like this. We'll make it 23%. But now this feeling of being 3-bet multiple times may give us the feeling of, fuck these motherfuckers, they're not going to 3-bet again the next time because they know that they've already 3-bet a bunch, they're not going to do it again. So I'm going to open 26%. Or the opposite. Maybe I'm going to go and play a little bit nittier. But see, this has nothing to do with poker. But this entire emotional system that can even drive that, we need to be aware of. It doesn't mean that our opponents don't have those emotions and we might not be able to... We may be able to predict what they think based off emotions, but if we don't understand ourselves, we cannot know anything about our opponents deeply. So we have to be able to go into ourselves first. It's very easy but it's okay to look at our opponent's behavior and then try to model it and try to talk about it. I'm simply saying that we can talk about it as much as we want, but we need to be very aware that in reality we cannot know about our opponent. So we're simply talking about ourselves, which is fun. It's fun. But in the sense that what we know about our opponent is like we've seen them for like 17 hands or 700 hands, and now we're sure they do this, we're sure they do that, we're sure they do that. But if we look at our own game, we're not even sure about what the fuck we do in this turn check raise situation, and we have to think very deeply for about 45 seconds and try to think, what is this guy actually doing here? Right? And what am I perceived like? And da-da-da. So we don't necessarily know what we are doing ourselves. So the idea that we believe in this model that we create of the opponent is a very kind of like unconscious perception, which is sort of like, I am so scared to be uncertain that I need to box my opponent into this guy. The beginning poker players will often say, what kind of guy is this? He's like this VPIP, he's this PFR. If that has some kind of meaning in and of itself, you didn't say like, hey, like his VPIP is 30, his PFR is 20. Do you just assume because of this ratio that he will play a certain way post-flop? Well, you're delusional. You need to actually look and be very, very clear. This is the problem, is people will play like 500, 400 hands an hour, and they don't even look at showdowns. They don't even take notes. They don't even think exactly what is my opponent doing right now in this moment. They're not modeling their opponent based on showdowns and hand histories and how they're playing against other people. They're simply like just going based off of this arbitrary model in their head that they're not trying to constantly improve. Which is not a very easy recipe for actually improving efficiently. It's not whatsoever. So, but when this emotional system sort of subsides a little bit, where we don't feel like our existence is being threatened just because we get too outed, any emotional reaction we can feel because, oh, we were supposed to win this hand. No, you weren't. That's not how poker works. If you step at the poker table, then you should tell your brain to shut the fuck up and not be an idiot, because you're a strategist. You're a fucking scientist. You're a philosopher. You're a mathematician. You're a game theorist. You're a psychologist. You're not a fucking little ego. You're so much more than that. So give this kind of seed the opportunity to at least plant. Right? This is what we need to do, is we need to give a very nice soil. We need to put a fence around the seed. There's so many things that we can do. But we very seldom give ourselves this opportunity. This higher perspective will absolutely continue to expand, and we will not be so controlled by our emotions. Now, of course, becoming more self-aware is going to give us more knowledge of other people, but that does not necessarily mean that they will have knowledge of us. In fact, it doesn't mean that at all. Us increasing our own self-awareness has nothing to do with them. If they were similar to us when we began, then we will be able to see things from a much higher perspective. The problem is that the brain dreams that there's this objective concept, and it creates a model based on mostly its own social conditionings. It says, okay, this guy plays 2K0, I know he's good. But good doesn't mean anything, right? So then when we're in like one specific hand against like 5 other people, and like, UTG plays this kind of way, and he plays like this kind of way, it's just, you cannot say anything about poker. If you think you can say anything about poker, you've never played. There's nothing you can say linguistically. It's so far beyond the capacity of something that you can convey in words. So us becoming self-aware and going beyond this, like rather than actually hand reading, we've got 60 minutes in a session, we can make 15, 20 BB, 110 BB, 100, and really think about what is going on each moment. We're fucking watching a YouTube video on the side or watching some other audio. We're trying to multitask because we have this belief that doing more stuff is better. Stupidity. But it's not because we are stupid. It is because the entire system is stupid. It's not because we ourselves are stupid. We are absolutely intelligent, and we are born intelligent, and we die unintelligent most of the time because we've been conditioned to believe that things that do not matter actually matter. And this is not the case. This is not the case whatsoever. Mental things about mind expansion that we have to remember. One of the most fundamental issues, one of the most fundamental things that comes up is the fact that we have a question and we think that that is necessarily relevant. The problem is that we never question the framework in which these questions arise. Do we even have the capacity? Do we even have the capacity to look past this simple framework of cause and effect and understand the totality and the meaning of all these words that we use? Very important stuff to think about. If the answers were so simple that you could just get it in a fucking training video, everybody would be playing high stakes. Is that not obvious? But people are more interested in believing in their hopes and dreams than looking at reality, because reality hurts. Reality is that anybody could be at high stakes. Reality is that not anybody could be good at chess. Reality is that anybody could be a high stakes poker player. Why? Because in poker, everybody is solving the wrong problems. Much more so than chess. Because of the way that people have been conditioned by the training industry. Now, this probably will not be the case in like 10 years. People will figure it out. Okay. But like there is a bit of an edge now. Now, I'm hoping that everybody in the world figures out that they don't need to worry about being competitive and trying to beat other people. They can just see how beautiful of a game this is. But for the competitive people as well that actually care about wanting to beat their opponents because they think that this will make them into a better human being, and they don't question the fact that why would they feel like they were not a good human being to begin with. In fact, they won't even frame it like that. They'll probably just say like, I want to be looked at by other people as good. And then it's like, well, why don't you just feel good already? Why do you need that addition? So it's very, very painful to be framing or to be questioning the framework in which these kind of ideas arise. No one wants to question these ideas. Anyways. I mean, this is a very, very good example. For instance, like there are a lot of like dramatic YouTubers that say, oh my God, RTA, robots, AI is going to come out and kill poker. Like they don't even understand that like no one at high stakes would ever lose against RTA. You would have to be mentally retarded to lose against RTA. If you don't understand how the game works and you've not already played a strategy that plays reasonably well against the solver and you're deviating so hard, you're looking at the HUD and you're saying, yes, this guy's playing like this. And say this guy's a complete robot. Real-time assistance. He doesn't make any decisions. You cannot lose against this guy unless you're trying. The idea that you can means you've never even gone into a game theory book and understand how EV works even for a second, so you don't deserve an opinion. You should sit down and shut the fuck up and open a game theory book. But nobody at High Stakes would ever complain about such a stupidity. Nobody. Because people understand how EV is made. Because they're playing against human beings, against 6 different opponents. You can't even prove that GTO would actually win in a 6-player game. How do you prove it? Show me a simulation that proves it. You can't. You can prove it in... You can make some very, very, very difficult strategies to play against. But that absolutely does not mean that it will be higher EV. In fact, it doesn't even mean that it would win. In a high-stakes game, RTA might even fucking lose without a really bad player playing. And if that bad player is not actively being exploited by someone who's way better than any low-stakes player that would be watching videos about drama because they're too lazy to study and they rather enjoy watching fun videos, it hurts, doesn't it? It hurts to see our friends do this to themselves. I know that we... that spend the time to be aware. Obviously, we're self-aware enough to even think about mental game, which is far beyond most people. It hurts very badly to see our own friends that we know that we could be able to help not be able to say anything about mind expansion, not be able to say anything about how beautiful this game is, about how deep this game is. Because they're preoccupied with solving the wrong problems because it makes them feel good. If you have to do something to feel good, if you can feel sad, then you don't know what happiness is. It's not our fault. The problem is that we're told how we are supposed to feel based on different situations. And we're told to feel shame and guilt if we don't cry at this and don't get angry at that. It's called social conditionings, and it's perpetuated through our nervous system. It's not even something that we have control over. Someone shoots a gun and we will feel a shaky sound if we deem that as a threat and if it's threatening. Of course, if we want to look like a big bad man, we're not scared of dying. I am terrified. I don't want to die. I will tell you that. I fucking love life. Life is too beautiful. I don't want to die. I'm a big bad man and I'm going to show you. I'm not scared to die, so I'm going to try not to let any natural being like a deer, if they hear a big sound or there's a predator, their body shakes. It's natural. But adults have learned to suppress themselves and control themselves because they don't want to look bad in front of other people. We poker players, fortunately, have to be much more self-aware. And we're much more aware of how people react. We're much more aware of other people's psychology. But we can rise above the level of just poker players, you see. We can go far beyond that. But the poker industry is so blind that they don't even know what they're trying to accomplish. They don't even understand the fact that their decisions are not coming from the thoughts in their brain. Their decisions are coming from the totality of their beliefs. They think that this world is one-dimensional, that they can forget all the knowledge that they've ever had, and they can just try to have one memory of PioSolver and they're going to win. Absurdity, but this is literally what we're taught. So it's not foolish. It is foolish, but it makes sense why it's foolish. It's a very valid perception because it's the way that people are trained. Some might even make the argument that studying and all this is helpful. But what are they studying? People will just go and say, I want to accomplish something, I'm going to study, and just study the wrong thing just because it makes them feel like better human beings. Have they ever just sat for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, and done absolutely nothing after a poker session and just let their brain process everything? Do we remember that we are Homo sapiens and that in our natural environment we would be picking berries, we would be eating fruits, we would be looking for apples, nuts, etc.? And that the amount of information that's going into our brain 24 hours a day via the TV, the internet, other people, is so hard to process. And all this gets mixed up with poker that we need time. And time is not adding more. Time is simply doing nothing, giving ourselves permission to relax, because our nervous system is constantly under stress. It says go, 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 go. No. Now, for someone that's not doing anything, they don't need to do something else because you're already perfect. And if you want to get better at poker, the first thing is to realize that this go, go, go thing is literally just digging your own grave. If you want to, I mean, fine, whatever. I mean, I don't know why you'd want to do that. Maybe because it's painful to stop, right? It's painful to stop go, go, go because you have the thought that I'm not accomplishing anything when I sit down and I give myself permission to rest. But you don't question, like, who's the person that told you that, like, you should be so unnatural that you have to do millions of things so other people will like you, or so you have to do millions of things to get money, right? So you can fulfill all these different requirements. I'm not telling you not to do those. I'm saying question the framework in which these problems arise. Don't start with the presupposition that these problems and that these questions are even valid, because most of the time the problems just exist in the sky somewhere and there's not even a real existential issue. It's just that we need something to blame because we ourselves have negative emotions, and they manifest in poker as blame at the dealer, blame at the deck, blame at the poker gods, blame at variance, blame at our opponent, blame at ourself. By the way, if you blame yourself or you blame anybody else, it's the exact same. If you think there's a difference between you blaming someone else and you blaming you, if you're mean to yourself, in fact, that's far more difficult. Because if you're not kind to yourself, if you're not compassionate to yourself, no one else is going to be. We live in a society of basically bullies and people that get bullied. I'm not suggesting that you be a bully. No, not at all, of course, right? I'm suggesting that we give ourselves a little bit more love, and that this blame mechanism that we feel we are not good enough, we need to do more, we need to get more. No, we have to question the framework that this thought arises in. Why does it come from that? Is it associated with a memory? Can we think of a time where someone told us that doing more would make us better? Did we ask them, why do you think I'm not good enough? Why do you tell me right now that I'm not good enough? Do we remember the joy that children had before they got fucking conditioned and programmed? How joyous every single moment was? They would make infinitely better poker players than most people that actually believe that things that don't matter do. They are far more intelligent. But in fact, we have the seed and we have the capacity to go back to our natural state. But it's so painful to frame it in these terms. So I will probably continue to try to put it in more positive terms, to say, like, we are going to get an edge against people that don't do it. But of course we will, obviously. But, like, it's not the fucking point. The point is not to be better than other people. Yes, of course, if they don't understand themselves, then yes, they're going to be shit and we're going to destroy them. Because if you spend an hour a day meditating and they're acquiring more knowledge, they will just confuse themselves more. Of course, they will try to find arguments and rationalizations for why you're wrong. That has nothing to do with strategy. This is only coming from insecurity, these rationalizations and arguments, because they think that their happiness is coming off of the backs of someone that's sad, so they have to prove why they're superior than someone else, but they're playing this game with themselves because they're imagining their opponents. We don't have to do that, actually. We don't have to do that even in the slightest. So we think our opponents are not going to exploit us in the future if we, just simply do whatever we want, or we think they will, and we have all these kind of different fears that come up. But most people are very concerned about themselves. Most people don't exploit, and the people that do exploit, we can start to think about. The problem is that there is this idea, I want to avoid this painful experience. The painful experience is being check-raised and not knowing what's going on. Rather than trying to avoid a painful experience, you should simply go out and go and think about how will he react? What will he do? But it's so painful to say, I don't want to get in this situation, so I'll never think about it. The reason why is because we will see immediate contradictions in our current thought process. So we'll try to find any sort of information to validate our current perception. We cannot identify with one particular idea because all ideas are equivalent. It's not like playing tight is good. Playing tight against people that are just going all in every single hand is going to work very well, but you might even want to play a little bit more than tight. You might even exploit them more. It depends on how loose they are. You see, they're going all in every single hand and you're only calling off 5% of your range, while you're leaving a shit ton of money on the table because you can simply do a mathematical equation and see how calling way more hands than that will make more money, right? but it's so scary to do things that we don't know about. No, but we have to actually go in and look at the math and not just remember some bullshit and then try to make ourselves feel better. The highest truth of poker is realizing that there's not even anything to solve. There's just a magnificent game that we can think about for hours and hours and hours and have fun with. But the problem is that the brain is in so much pain constantly. This doesn't admit that it's in pain. It will tell you, I'm going to accomplish something. I'm going to be a big bad man one day and I'm going to fucking be the slave of other people's eyes. And I'm going to tell you that I'm a big slave. It's a fucking joke, to be honest. Because why would you even care? Why do you not just enjoy music and listen to music because Jimi Hendrix is beautiful? Listen to his voice. Why are we obsessed with things that don't matter? Why don't we put on some Bob Dylan? Why don't we listen to the Rolling Stones? Right? Why are we obsessed with things that are not important? The highest truth is that there's nothing to solve in poker. It is the most deep thing, but no one will ever be able to admit that as long as they are identified with this go conflict solution idea. The highest perspective is love for the game as well. It's not like I'm playing for money, ha ha ha. You have no fucking soul if you're playing for money. And you're not very good if you have to think about playing for money. Right? And that's absolutely fine. In fact, it's beautiful, but at least it's an admission that we can make so we can be able to get better. Everyone starts there. I've been in situations where I've not been able to make money at poker because of my ego. I've been in situations where I simply wasn't knowledgeable enough to make money. I've been in situations where I've made lots of money. We as a human being evolve. We go up and down, but we never ever want to see that we could possibly have a flaw. And it's honestly because there are fucking people that will be like, well, you shouldn't have that flaw. You should be better. But fuck everybody. We don't have to be honest with anybody else. We can simply sit with ourselves and think about it ourselves and sit in silence and not look for another person's approval, but understand the truth of ourselves. Understand the truth that strategy is so much deeper than just borrowed pictorial thought of what Pio Solver says. I mean, come on, you're playing against a human motherfucking being and you want to remember what something that gives you 0 EV says? You obviously have not understood why you're playing poker. I mean, Jesus Christ. You don't even think, well, what are we even trying? We're not trying to exploit our opponents. Oh, we're living in fear that they could exploit us, so I'm going to remember this. No, of course not. Fucking like, it's so sad. Poker's so beautiful and it's reduced to this like game for the mentally retarded, like for the Special Olympics. Why? Everybody has such an intelligent brain as well. We're all born so intelligent. Look at the trees. They don't even have a brain. But they don't look for conflict. They don't look for solution. The trees are already absolutely magnificent. Absolutely perfect. All perspectives of the problem-solving mind are simply egoic perspectives. Animals do not have any complexities. Children do not, young children before they're very conditioned, do not have complexities, right? They don't care how it looks from the outside when they go and take a shit. They don't care what it looks like from the outside when they fart or when they burp. They don't have these great emotional reactions of hating the other person that burps or feeling embarrassed when we burp because they're not so unnatural, right? They don't judge themselves. They just have love. And that love and that beauty for life is enough. We can do the same thing. We may not be in the jungle, but we can be behind our computers and have that same level of equanimity. A poker player who expands his mind is the same. As long as we don't have any predators, we're always going to be happy, regardless of whether or not our opponent is mocking us or we're having a downswing or we feel like we've been 3-bet 25 times in a row, because this idea that the next hand has any extra significant meaning is simply a delusion that is like believing that it's just a belief against logic. Use logic and slice that belief with a razor blade. And if you think that you've sliced it because you've said, yeah, I agree, and you haven't actually sit with that idea for like 10 hours, why do I react like this on the river? Just sit for an hour, 2 hours after a session and feel, why do I have all these emotions that come up when a card comes? I sit here and I say, I am this human being that doesn't believe that. Yet, obviously, there's evidence to the contrary. And then there's an extra additional layer of shame. I shouldn't be this way. No, that's another identification of a problem. And now there's going to be another solution. No, it's the problem is the conflict solution mind. The solution is always love. The solution is always attention to ourself. To trying to be able to give ourselves love, attention, awareness into these areas that are painful and not adding extra layers of shame if we can help it. And if we experience that, remember that we are simply witnessing this. We are not the one that is creating the pain. We are not like sitting here actively and saying, I want to feel pain. If the river card is that, no, it's just like a memory that if this happens, this will be against our location and this will be bad. It's just like when we put our hand over fire, it's information that tells us to move our hand. It's just that the human brain is so vast and complex that it sort of forgets that, like, oh yeah, losing money right now doesn't mean our existence is going to get threatened. That's why we see like very crazy people like get angry when they lose a hand. They've got like 200K in the bank, they own a house, and like they care. And they treat other human beings who are absolutely beautiful and perfect like they're bad because they don't know how to deal with their emotions. This is like schizophrenia, except that it's the ordinary human condition. We poker players don't get rewarded for delusion, but our opponents get punished for theirs. So it's imperative that we really do not run, but we embrace and we love ourselves. We don't judge ourselves. But we understand that, wow, everybody is suffering from their psychological pain. Holy shit, it's not their fault. People are not bad. They're just insane. It's just insane to say one day, I'm a mathematician, I go to school, I know the statistics are this, and then have some crazy irrational beliefs about how I'm a bad person being, there's karma, and somehow this fucking poker hand is going to come this way. No, you just you just can't comprehend the fact that you know this fact, yet you have these crazy emotions, so you're trying to justify a reason through a belief system. Yes, God exists, sure. But not in the way that you perceive him currently, that's for goddamn sure. Right? God is absolutely perfect and he doesn't judge you and he loves you unconditionally no matter what you do. But this is not the way that religion has kind of trained us. And dogma has always been the way of the society. And it's been spoken from the perspective of GTO as a sort of GTO is superior. And or exploitative is superior. But these things are two sides of the same coin. They're incomparable. They have nothing to do with each other. GTO has nothing to do with exploitative. We're talking about completely different ideas, completely different things that have nothing to do with each other. What is real? We are at a hand, and we are saying our hand is 6'5". And we're saying, like, what is the EV of RFIing this? Well, first of all, we're not playing against computers, so the EV is not going to be 0 of 6'5". You can say that the totality of the combinations that you open, you can actually get a strategy EV that's guaranteed almost-ish kind of 0, but not really, because obviously poker is infinitely more complex than your pictorial thought imagining that you're playing perfectly. But let's just pretend that you were, right? And let's just pretend that there was no rake as well. These things are not comparable. In fact, we have a decision, so then we can think about what is the utility of even thinking about game theory. We're not thinking about game theory to be balanced, obviously. We're trying to understand how the game works and what the meaning of these different bets are. And say we think that our opponent organizes his range by putting too many medium hands in his check back range and betting too much air and betting too many good hands. Well, what is the counter? Right? What does counter mean? What, we're just going to talk about the turn node when he checks back? Are we not thinking about the flop node where he's putting too many good hands and bad hands in? Are we not thinking about the river probe nodes? We have to understand the entirety of the game tree and not just identify what this is one move. We have to understand every single node with absolute clarity, and it's completely possible. And if you think it's not possible, please just sit and give yourself some attention and love and breathe and understand that we've been told that a lot of things are not possible since we were born, and we're still here and we're still kicking, and there's a lot of stuff that's possible, and I love you. It is possible. The Athenians fucking killed Socrates, by the way, for questioning things. And I say this because it's not a socially acceptable thing to question things, because there are these people that simply believe in positivity. And of course their positivity is fake and it's a lie, because it's off of the backs of other people that they punish and say, you're not good because you're negative, but I am good because I'm positive. But they haven't even looked at the way that they're treating people. They are just speaking random words and then trying to inflict emotional pain on people and trying to improve them and make them better, right? So Socrates was trying to explain very deeply to question your society, question everything that your teachers tell you. Don't stop at the politicians, question everything. Don't stop at the police. That's what the Germans did, and the Germans were the most intelligent people. The greatest philosophers came out of Germany. There was not a single group of people that were more intelligent, but they were dominated by a man that was schizophrenic and delusional, who had the belief, because he has horrible emotional pain, maybe he was hurt when he was a kid, maybe he had a bad childhood. This man, Adolf Hitler, believed that by hurting another person that he will somehow feel better. Now, of course, he doesn't consciously believe this. He probably believes that these people are bad, we're going to make a more pure race, blah, blah, blah. Which, that's not how you make a better society. You make a better society by loving people, not hurting people. But this is very hard to understand for the brain that works in terms of conflict solution, right? It's very, very challenging. Because if you think Jew, problem, no Jew, no problem, it's very easy to be a robot and say, kill all Jews. And then you shout this 1,000 times until the most intelligent people believe it. Right now, we poker players are very intelligent because we have to actually be so intelligent to beat the rake and to beat recreationals, to beat other professionals, and to survive and make our fucking money. So we're certainly in a different class in terms of intelligence at some level. Not to be superior, just a spade is a spade. And actually we're often taught to say we're not intelligent even if we are. See, this is an intellectual game. So we cannot play these games of saying, I'm not going to say I'm intelligent because I want to use this badge of humility to just not brag about a spade is a spade so I can have another asset to brag about. But it hurts the humble people because they're just the other side of the coin of the ego. All of this stuff is so beyond this game. Socrates was not a violent man. He was not dangerous. He was simply a philosopher telling people to question no matter what and keep questioning. And they fucking killed him because it hurt their ego. Because when these students came into the society and they said, dude, why are you treating people this way? Why do you have such a hierarchical society? Why do you not treat everybody absolutely equally? And why don't you kiss everybody and hug everybody and love everybody? Why are you so much interested in war and killing? And they said, we're going to kill Socrates because you asked, why are you killing people? Because the politicians want to stay in power. The priests want to stay in power. For 2,000 years, we've had people killing in the name of God. I guarantee you, God would not want to kill any living human being or any living life form. God just loves. We are God. We are so beautiful. We are so perfect. But we've been taught from the beginning that we are not good enough. We are taught that some people are ugly and some people are beautiful. That some people are good and some people are bad. We're taught that, it's just nonsense, the shit that we get filled with Jesus Christ. I know we don't believe most of this, but it's still thoughts that appear, and we can certainly look around and see how there are other human beings in the society that act this way. So we cannot completely deny this. Even if we know ourselves we don't act this way, we can look around, and it's painful as hell to say, wow, I know this person and he acts like this. It's very fucking painful. But it's also truth. So the solution is not doing some amazing thing and finding some new trick to fix this bad feeling. Actually, basically the solution is to do nothing and meditate and feel the thing that says to go, 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 go. That's literally the trick. The problem is that it's so simple. Complexity cannot understand simplicity, and it thinks it can, because you're putting so much shit on top of something. Simplicity can always understand complexity. Nikola Tesla has said this numerous times, one of the greatest inventors in history. And it's something that the ordinary mind believes the opposite somehow. They associate more complexity. I don't even understand. Is it not obvious? But people think very backwards because of the way that we're conditioned. And then we hear the word Nikola Tesla, or we hear the word Thomas Edison, the name. And then we have an image as if we understand what creativity actually is. We have to sit in our own skin, sit on our own butts, without anybody else's opinion, without any borrowed knowledge. We have to think about our own opponents and why they're doing what they're doing and what they're doing. Close our eyes and think about the game. If that's fucking so terrifying that you need some outside agency to help you play poker, I understand. It's terrifying for everybody probably. But this is just the way it is. If you don't want to if you need that, okay. Use your safety valve, use your life jacket. Even though you're not going to die, you just have negative emotions. Right? But the brain confuses rent in 3 weeks as an actual threat to my survival now. So it experiences things like anxiety, depression. In fact, I don't think other species are in so much psychological pain that they choose to commit suicide. But very unfortunately, Homo sapiens happen to commit suicide in extraordinary rates. Extraordinary rates, because they are so conditioned and told that they're bad, and nothing that you do is ever good enough. You always have to go more. It's so uncompassionate, this game. It's so uncompassionate and it's so unloving. It is our job to sit with ourselves and think, why did our fucking opponent play the hand that he did the way he did without asking anybody else? And where do we find that knowledge? We literally say, I'm on this flop and I have this fucking hand. What would I do? And see how crazy your brain goes. Is it painful? Is it difficult that you don't get some extra agency or help? And you figure the hands out with your pen and your piece of paper and you think about it. And you hand read. In fact, even meditation and letting all this stuff process is completely fine as well. You're letting a lot of unconscious information become more and more processed just through sitting after a session and spending time. So why are we so robotic? Why do we think that one hand can ever have any similarity to another hand? We must be dreaming of the past and having our past influence our current decision without being completely free and fluid. That's because we have a lot of associations that are completely compartmentalized and our brain is not hyper-connected and fluid and moving. So we have this belief that, I have to remember this and I have to remember that. No, if you know it, then you don't have to remember. Then it just comes up when it's needed. The agent that's trying to remember that fears, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can remember this, simply doesn't know it. It simply borrowed some fractal words and then believed to know it. And it causes it so much pain because the belief will have to be smashed that I know this, I have certainty. But in fact, that's what actually allows us to be able to play like the Wild West, like crazy maniacs and destroy everybody, because people are fucking terrified of doing anything that's not GTO with certain hands. Right? They're not actually terrified. And then when they have a really good hand, they'll play it a different way. They won't tell, blah, blah, blah. And then even you'll have some people that are so certain to only play inside the box. Even against fish, they don't even know how to play against fish because they have no idea what poker is. They think that you actually make money against fish by betting like 1/3 and fucking like RFIing like 2x. And they're like, I'm afraid that my opponent might 3-bet me. Well, okay, have you considered the EV of just RFIing like aces to like 7x? And like thought, like, what is the worst thing that they could ever do if they even know that? What are they going to? They're going to 3-bet you a little bit more, and then you're going to 4-bet get in a little bit more, and you're actually getting more EV because you're playing against the fish. But you have this presupposition that you can only RFI to this sizing because you're so terrified to actually use your own brain. So you have to get borrowed knowledge from other people about solutions. I'm sorry, my friend. That's not poker. It's not poker. It's not poker. Okay, so I want to say, let's imagine there's this poker student, and we'll call him Billy Bob. Say he he struggles to memorize specific hands and strategies. Basically, he feels lost, and he's looked at mental game. He's looked at different strategies. He's tried to find solutions. He's gone on training sites, and he's not really found a solution. So he goes to, say, a mental game coach. Now, luckily, this particular mental game coach is not just a man who's read books about the psyche and borrowed more words without knowing himself and understanding his own psychology, right? He actually understands his own psychology. So he doesn't just parrot things out of textbooks. He doesn't just wait like a computer for a few words and then he spits out a response. He's actually looking to the person. He's looking at the person that he's speaking to, and he's trying to understand what they need currently. So the teacher shared a story. I'm trying to remember the story. It's from, I'm making this up on the fly, so it's like basically a part in the book called Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. He basically recounted a part of the book. He was like, there was I believe a woman student in a classroom who was having trouble writing an essay about the town. So she was supposed to write a couple-page essay, let's just say, I'm paraphrasing, and she couldn't even write one word. She was completely stumped. So the teacher came and said, oh, what's going on? I understand. See, some teachers might even be like, damn, you need to get that assignment in right now. They wouldn't like go to this and say, oh, I understand it's hard. Absolutely. Let's think about what we can do to solve. Yes, absolutely, it's hard. No, they might even be punishing and mean and like, you didn't get it done. Well, you're disrespectful to me. It's like, no, motherfucker, you fucking imprisoned this kid against their will for fucking 18 years and told them that if they don't do this, they're a bad person. Punish them completely emotionally, violently. And then you fucking treat them like they're bad if they don't do exactly what you want, like a prisoner. And you complain that there were slaves 300 years ago. And you don't see what you do to your own children. But it's very sad. We poker players don't have the same opportunity to be so foolish and to be taught by fools, because we have to rise above and expand our minds to a completely different level than is fathomable to basically a parrot robot teacher. Basically, the education system works in creating words and then associations with that words that everybody agrees upon. So they all say pizza means this, and we all have this kind of agreed upon framework. But if you get it wrong, if you say it differently, you're wrong. The entire world is based in A, B, C, D, and if you don't get the right thing, then we will train you to feel some negative emotions and we will shame you. But it's this very big subliminal thing where some people are actually hypnotized enough to think that they are better than other people. They are more superior even though they're both going to die because they have been more educated, because they are more knowledgeable. Some people feel that they are inferior because they are less knowledgeable. But I've never met a stupid human being in my entire life because everybody is absolutely intelligent. It's just that if you judge intelligence based on certain metrics, if you tell a fucking dancer that you need to take a math test and that her intelligence is only going to be based on how well she does math, I'm sorry, but you will probably think that she is stupid and you are an idiot. Because you have not evaluated more areas for where she is actually brilliant. It is your own choice in your judgment. But it's what we've been forced into. And I'm not talking to anybody specifically. I'm just simply trying to make it clear that yes, the society may not pay to watch this woman dance, but if it's what she loves, then she is magnificent. And I absolutely support her in her dancing. But basically, in this book, the teacher says, okay, well, let's just write about this very specific brick in the wall in the town. So we're talking about laser hyper-focused on one particular thing. And he said, write me a couple pages on that. And in poker terms, he basically advises her to try to understand the intricacies of different fundamental principles for how the game actually works, starting from first principle. And what that would look like for the majority of poker players is actually deconstructing their current assumptions rather than believing, yeah, I know what this means. I'm just going to move on to the next thing because it hurts so much to admit that I don't know. It's so painful to admit that we don't know because we're punished. So we automatically assume that any word that anybody says we know, but we don't have to do it with other people. We can do it alone, and we can think about it alone. And it's not a problem. But we have to understand the psychology of poker players. The psychology and understanding why people do what they do is millions of times superior to understanding some mathematical thing that you're lying to yourself about, that you pretend that you understand, that you don't. It's not possible. Breaking down this immense game into manageable components, we're actually able to gain insight, right? We're actually going to be able to understand the game and be more adaptive rather than saying, in this situation, we always do this. Yeah, but what about the fact that what the fuck does that even mean? We're playing against this abstraction of what this model, the aggregate model that we think is a real person because we see their VPIP. It's just like intentionally playing blind. It's very, very, very sad. This is basically the blind spot of human beings. It is what is essentially called the human condition. And it's where we get our greatest edge. Because no one wants to look at this because it's incredibly challenging to face. Because we're taught that if there is something that is not perfect, it's someone's fault. And then because of fault, we feel bad. And then we look for blame away from ourselves or on ourselves in order to feel like at least we have blame. Now we know that this feeling can go away because I'm going to fix it. No, it's just the conditionings that we've been trained to care about things that don't matter. We think that we're bad. We think that we have to solve all these things that don't matter. No, we just simply have to take a look at our current beliefs, take a look at the way that we currently play poker, and challenge our assumptions.